Good evening, Barrister
Uh,
Mbeseha.
yeah, thank you for having me,
Yes, it's
and
always a
thank you for
pleasure
giving me
to
the
have you.
opportunity to add or clarify what our learned guest said. You see, there's so much at stake, and sometimes we miss it, even when we explain our cause. We're talking about the Kansas City Three, who are indicted and are in prison for almost 2 years without release. And our learned guest told us something. He said there's a law in America called the Neutrality Act, which forbids American citizens going to war unless the war has been declared by the United States. I cited the issue of Ukraine and Hamas and Palestine, where Americans are fighting there, where Americans are contributing money in addition to fighting. They are buying weapons. And then you ask, why are we being so different? Why are they different to what is happening? The problem I think is when you go to these people, they would act on what you tell them. And sometimes we miss the point. And this is what I'm trying to say. These people have been indicted. I had the opportunity to read the indictment several times. The indictment does not anywhere suggest that there's a war in Cameroon. They carefully avoided the idea of a war in the indictment. So just reading the indictment and saying that she and the rest were fighting, they're like Ukrainians. A guest who looks at that thing, a senator, someone who just goes to look at it, you will not see any element of war. They carefully left it out. They're simply charged for promoting, what do you call it, terrorism. What is terrorism? If you take a cutlass or your spear and go and kill one policeman, two policemen, that's a terrorist act. If you just go and do like Choyaba does, kidnap a few people, that's a terrorist act. And so that's what they're focused in the Justice Department on. And what did they describe the three Kansas people? In that indictment, they are described clearly, not even as fighters, they are described as civil leaders, elected officials of the counties who were raising money to do this and that. A county is an organized organization. If the counties are in the United States, they are legal. And the other thing they will say to show that there was terrorism going on is the site they ensure the one I adopted a certain Cardinal to me. Adopting somebody like that is an act of terrorism. So these people in the state, in the Justice Department, have been very, very careful to hide their tracks. So even the people who hire to go there, if they look at the indictment, they don't see anything called terrorism there. They don't see anything called war there. So we should rephrase our story. We tell them we should start with the fact that there's ongoing war, and these people, even though they are charged for money, they were not even buying arms. By the indictment, they were city officials trying to assist the needy at home. They were elected officials of the counties. And so it looks like the State Department people, the FBI people who filed these charges were so clever to keep out the element of war, which we have been emphasizing on, which we have been saying that the Americans are going to fight in Ukraine, Americans are going to fight in Israel. Because in the eyes of the United States, even though they violate the Neutrality Act, there's a war, there's an active war going on there. We see a war in Ukraine. You see bombs falling there. We see a war in Gaza, fighting there. So because our own has not taken that stage, they hide the element of war. And so when we say this theory that, well, Americans are going here and fighting a war, you look, somebody goes to help us, looks at that thing and say, but what are you charging these people for? He says, no, just terrorism. We are left with only one arm of it. So where is the terrorist act? So what I'm trying to say is that we should try to make the point that for 5 years there's an ongoing war. I'm sure we have images to show to our lobbyists, to our supporters, that this is war here. People were even raising money not to go and buy arms as we've been buying to go and help to go and help Palestinians or people from Ukraine. By their own indictment, they raised arms as leaders of the community, civil community, to help the victims of whatever thing was going on. It could be war, it could be a disaster like what is happening in northern Cameroon. It could be a disaster like that thing that happened at the Falaise de Cham. These people, we who are here, anywhere else in the world, right, we could organize, buy medication, buy clothing. And we organize in the name, for example, in this instant case, they call themselves county officials. That's what the indictment talks of the three. You say A, he was a county chair. B, he was a county treasurer. And so I think this is a missing link that probably will be missing. Then Paddy asked a question. Now, before Paddy asked the question, he talked of the story of the visit. The delegation, he led a powerful delegation of everybody you can imagine in the world. The best experts that you can imagine in the world that he made this thing. And then, of course, they went to the Justice Department. Since July, they have had no reply. They were received there. So whatever information they left there is still there. They were received. Why no reply? We don't know. But then, why no reply? You go to the next question. Paddy asks if he believes that a change of government, as is coming to happen, can have a difference. You try to say, no, we don't have any difference because the man coming in is just different. He's just going to be the same person. No, but it can have a difference. Because he goes on to tell us in his last advice, when Paddy asked, what do we do next? The answer was, make sure your voices are heard in Washington, D.C. But before saying that, make sure your voices are heard in Washington, D.C., he said something. He said, in the case, something will happen in the courtroom. What happens in the courtroom is influenced by what is happening outside the courtroom. In the courtroom, you get essentially lawyers and judges. Outside the courtroom, you get essentially politicians who act based on their political motivations. And so this is a good opportunity for us. Whatever thing has happened, a new political outlook is coming to Washington, D.C. And so we must capitalize on that because the people who caused the indictment of the Kansas City Three were politically motivated. It was not a question of just doing this justice. No, they have political motivation. The State Department, the Justice Department, led by the Attorney General, is a political appointee. The judges hearing the matter are politically nominated. And so his last advice, I think, may your voices be heard in Washington, D.C. is the most important thing. We have to redouble our efforts. But before I leave this segment, I think this segment was essentially made for us to understand this. And for the public of Ambassador to know that if the Kansas City 3 are still there, it is not because we lack the efforts. We have done the maximum. From his own narration, the coalition that was formed to fight this case is a powerful coalition. And I can only say, I said before, we're going to succeed. It's a question of time. We're going to succeed. So that's what I take from that interview. And I think it was a very good thing. As Paddy says, these people, they are not talking there for nothing. We'll hire them, we'll pay them some money. If somebody tells you they're working for nothing, no, we need the money there for them to continue the work. And where do you get the money? Draft, draft, and draft. Over to you.
All right, Barrister Mbeseha. Well, looking at the situation of the Kansas City 3, even Dr. Martin Mungwa had pointed to the disparities, pointing to the different treatments when it comes to these Amazonian bonds. There's Americans from African origin who are treated differently from those others who support Israel or other international parties at war who support the defense system. An example would be those who support Ukraine. And Dr. Mungwa talked about it extensively, pointing to the disparities. Now, what is set in place to show these disparities to the US system, or what other efforts are underway to make the US justice system gain insight into the disparities going on, and how do the legal team for this Kansas City 3 plan to bring this out more so it could get them the freedom they need from these undeserved sentence they are undergoing right now?
I think the professor had a very good answer for that. I wish we should learn from it. He said the disparity is historical. They are not doing this just to this Kansas City 3. This thing has been going on against the blacks forever in the United States. So if you are a minority underprivileged, you need to put an extra effort to get your own matter heard. There's disparity, nobody doubts that.
So that's what
This
we're asking
disparity,
now. What is set in
yeah,
place to make it?
yes, the disparity stems from our color, and therefore you have to fight it. In order to fight and break down the walls to equality, you need to make an extra effort, which is what we're doing, which is why we're hiring all these people to sing the song for us, to touch the doors that we cannot touch by ourselves. And discrimination can be rare, it can be imagined. It can be for different reasons. It is not just because we're a minority. How many Jews are in the United States? Very few, but they are Jews. But they've penetrated the system to a point that you cannot even call Israel out here. You'll be prosecuted for doing that. Because they have knocked the doors. They have gotten into these areas of influence. And so I think he has given us the thing. He says disparity, as Bongo says, is historical. It has been there forever. Blacks, whatever thing the blacks have in this country, the right to vote, the right to be free from slavery, had been a daunted and uphill task. But they've gotten them. They fight those things and they get. And we're fighting this thing, as I've said, we will get it. We just need to continue the effort and redouble it when necessary. We cannot deny, nobody denies there's disparity. Nobody denies that disparity is injustice. People just keep a blind eye. It is common in America. If we were looking about this, just talk about the elections, it was an open thing. Trump said, I will send away everybody who is not a member of this country. These who are strangers here are the minority. And what happened? He was voted in. He won the election. We cannot challenge that. And so that disparity has been there forever, historical. And so, again, he mentioned examples of Americans who enlisted to go and fight in Mozambique, to go and fight in Angola, to go and fight sometimes even in South Africa. But they enlisted because the American society recognized there's a war there. Up to this point, we've never even had our own boys or girls here enlist to go and fight in Cameroon. Whatever support we give has been indirect, has been very, very minimal, civil. And so that is what it is. I think we've learned a lot from that interview, and I hope it will help us. Over to you.
All right, Barton, basically at this point, I would say this is like the most important concern about the Kansas City 3 for Ambazonians, which is what diplomatic or legislative efforts, if any, are underway to address the situation of the Kansas City 3. What diplomatic or legal efforts, and how might these efforts that are underway impact the United States relations with Southern Cameroons and La Republique generally? How does it affect them home and abroad?
Well, there are legal efforts on the way, ongoing. There are political efforts ongoing. The team, Dr. Professor Hines, is a lawyer. He has led a delegation, a coalition of several law societies to the courts and to the Justice Department. So that is properly being handled. There is another diplomatic aspect which is ongoing right now, which is to hire people, experts in the field, who are knocking the political doors, yeah, as you said, for our voices to be heard. They are doing it as we speak. And so we have not missed any of those pointers. We're there. But again, we are not going to be tired. We shall only continue and continue until they are free if we have the means. Because none of those doors that were knocking are being knocked for nothing. Either they be political or legal. But we have engaged both arms. The legal approach, which is being led by Professor Hines, is a lawyer. He has told us of the delegation of powerful legal experts he took to the Justice Department. That's law. There's another arm being led by another diplomat, American high diplomat, which is knocking the political doors, knocking the senators, knocking at the doors of senators, knocking at the doors of Congress people. In fact, what they call the black lawyers, the black politicians in Congress. We're doing all that. Again, those things need money. Let the family of the Kansas City Three rest assured that we're not leaving any stone unturned. Let Amazonians who did not know that we have been fighting and the people hopefully should be released. We have 2 pointers in our favor. The change of political climate in Washington City is going to automatically lead to also the change in the Justice Department. The present Attorney General, who is a Democrat, is on his way out by virtue of the elections. Come, come January 20th, just 2 months, somebody else will sit there. He still be still called Justice Department official. He'll be a big man there. But he'll be coming in with the perspective of the young government, the Republicans. We'll be dealing with the Attorney General of the Democrats. We don't know what they will do, but the episode said they will change, like it or not. The change might very much be in our favor, or maybe not in our favor, but there will be a change. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Barrister Mbeseha, for that wonderful contribution.